everybody. Thank you for listening and watching the Healthy Project podcast. I'm your host, Corey Dion Lewis. Today, we have another My City, My Health panelist who was an attendee last year, Julian Neely. Man, thank you so much, bro, for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it. This is big.
Yeah.
Got the whole production.
Hey, I gotta show you before we leave. I gotta show you a picture of how it started and how it's going.
Okay.
Because it was big ashy out here when I first started. I mean, the Zoom podcast video was crazy.
Hey, it's a start, though.
You gotta start somewhere. I'm real moisturized right now.
There you go.
But I'm still levels. But hey, enough about me. I'm super excited that you're on the community panel this year. Not only just because of the work you do in the community, which I want you to tell the people a little bit about, but you can just tell you're passionate about improving. You know what I mean? And I saw you I knew you before this, but I saw you at a panel at Broadlawns, and you can just tell there's a difference between answering a question and being like, no, y'all need to really get this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So before we get into it, how about you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Julian Neely. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I was in the Johnston School District. If you talk about zoning.
Yeah.
I was, I guess, I don't know if you say a product of zoning, but a resulting of zoning between Johnston and Des Moines, I was a part of the Johnston School District, but a Des Moines resident. So I K through 12 went through the Johnston School District, went to Iowa State University to pursue a degree in journalism and mass communications with a minor in sociology. While at Iowa State, I got really involved because I wanted to continue the work that I was already doing here in the community. But really, honestly, that got me involved and really identified my passion for the community was the protest that we organized back in 2014 after the murder of Michael Brown. I remember the news coverage and the stories that were being depicted in 2012 of Trayvon Martin, seeing that on CNN, seeing that on MSNBC, and other outlets, and just being distraught and frustrated and angry because one, being in a predominantly white school, you don't have a lot of allies or a lot of advocates, especially at that time.
Well, at least that will speak up and say something too.
Exactly. And so I finally got some courage just to buy a sweatshirt off of Amazon that said "I am Trayvon Martin" and wore it to school. And that was my first step into advocacy and being a sort of an advocate in our community. And after that, I began to get people coming up to me, students, teachers, giving me eyes and stuff like that. I remember having a student that came up to me and was just it was Trayvon Martin's fault, right? And I was like,
Yo.
Whoa. And that was my first conversation / argument with the individual about my beliefs, and also standing up for social justice, standing up for my people, especially the unjust things that happen to our communities. And when when the murder of Michael Brown happened, and seeing the news coverage of his deceased body still in the middle of the street, and seeing the coverage on that, I remember a friend called me. His name's Awal Muhammad, and he was like, "Yo, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this." And I'm like, "I am too." And we put our minds together, worked with Courtney Caldwell and Linda Brown, who were two students in the Des Moines area, but also spoken word poets. And we put our brains together and organized a protest outside the Polk County Courthouse in 2014. And we had the support of Corinthian Baptist Church, our pastor, and other community members. And not only did we have the opportunity to speak, not only did Courtney and Linda, they were doing this Black Boy Chronicle series at that time, really just telling the story of Black boys and the things that they have to go through. And so they did their performance, but then you had children that were inspired to, at the age of 4, that would come up and I have something to say.
Right.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of seeing this happen to my people. What do I look forward to if this is going to be the continued outcome for my people and people that look like me or that identify like me? And so that right there inspired me to continue that work. And so when I went to Iowa State, it was like immediate. I was like, find me the Black Student
Right.
Alliance right now. I want to continue
Yeah.
this work and trying to push the needle forward. And I had a mentor, Marcus Flynn, who now runs Black Men Teach out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, um, who just took me under his wing and was like, "I'm gonna show you the ropes." And I got elected to be freshman action team delegate for the Black Student Alliance, and led some different things, and then eventually got tapped to join student government as the director of diversity and inclusion, which was a sort of a new role. I was taking it from the inaugural person and kind of just like transformed it a little bit.
Right.
Because I was like, we have to make some leadway. I'm tired of like beginning. You see, like you hear stories and stuff about what students experience, Black students, brown students experience, students of color at Iowa State, and then you also begin to experience it yourself. And my big thing is before I speak, I have to do my research. That's something my parents always taught and instilled in me when we were young. It was like, before you speak on anything, make sure
Right.
you've done your research so you're not sharing no false information, no misleading information. Make
Right.
sure it's straight facts. And so that's what I did. I was talking to people. I did my research, and I remember in it was like 2015, 2016, Mizzou was going through a big protest because of some racial things that were happening on their campus. And there was a brother that was going on a hunger strike. And since Mizzou is part of our Big 12, and our BSAs or BSUs are connected, we were like, we have to stand in solidarity. Like, we can't just allow y'all to fight this on your own. And so we held a protest ourselves at Beardshirt Hall, which is where our admin are typically at, our university president and stuff. And everybody some people got opportunity to speak and protest. And I remember I finally just got the courage to speak, and I just shared all the things that I've began to like absorb from stories and research that I've been able to conduct. And I was just like, stuff has to change. And we have to hold our administrators accountable. And I remember stating something on the lines of like, because at the time it was President Leith, Stephen Leith, who was our university president. And I remember saying something on the lines of, you've shared all these different things and there's no measurement proving that you've pushed the needle forward. And at a certain point, we're going to have to hold you accountable. And if you have not stayed true to what you promised our community,
Right.
You have to resign. I remember saying the words like resign. And like, people at that time, like they're energized and stuff like that. Some people make it looks. But I remember being pulled out of a BSA meeting by some admin and our student body president at that time, and being like, we heard what you said. And was pretty much just like where your facts at, trying to challenge me. And I'm like, I did my research, and you can't sit here and tell me that those experiences are not true. Because what has changed?
Right.
There's no measurement saying that the retention of Black students has increased. There's nothing saying that the amount of scholarships that you give out to Black students has increased. The experiences overall in regards to resources, to the qualitative experience or data that aligns with their experience has improved. I see Black students struggling with paying for school that are out of state. I see Black students struggling socially at Iowa State. Yes, there's some great success stories, 100%, but we cannot use that to overshadow other people's experience. Like, people are struggling, and so what are we doing? Besides you coming challenging me, what are we doing about it? Why are we not putting our minds together? And so that kind of inspired me more, and I was like, I am gonna see where this kind of takes me a little bit. And then I was in journalism, so it gave me a little bit more flexibility because I wanted to be in engineering. But journalism gave me the opportunity to, one, tell stories that typically get unheard or untold. And then second, it gave me the flexibility to be invested in my community. And so that's what I committed to, and got a lot of opportunities, a lot of great things that I never foresaw myself being a part of that I got to experience. So.
Right. That's dope. You hear these stories about people starting similar, or their journey starting similar. The murder of insert Black man or Black boy, but it's like there's such a beauty in that. In a way, I try to find the positive in, like, it kind of sparked this social justice thing where people were really like, hey, this is enough. So there's some beauty in that, I try to find. It's hard because you hate to see somebody
Yep.
die, but it's not like they're gone and forgotten.
Yeah.
So with that, what energy are you bringing to your current role? Let's talk about what you do for the community
Okay.
now here in Des Moines. All that energy that you have, that you had at the Iowa State University. How are you bringing that energy to the community now? You came back. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm back, Des Moines. Right?
Yeah.
How are you manifesting that and with what you do now?
Well, I've learned a lot over the course of a couple of years, and so now I'm the United League and Link director for United Way of Central Iowa, and League is what I was initially introduced to United Way for, which was a donor affinity group under United Way that focused on Black economic mobility. And it was bringing together Black donors and other allies that really wanted to invest into the Black community when it came to the different strategies underneath our economic opportunity element, which was, job education, job training, job placement, building assets, and also understanding the tax code for your own benefit. And so all of that has contributed to a lot of different things that we've experienced or the different disparities that we face in our community, from housing to access to healthcare to our educational system, to owning your own home, to the job that you have access to, or that you're informed about or even exposed to at a young age. And so it was something that I was really intrigued in giving back. I was at a point in my life where I was like, I'm giving a lot of my time outside of work to the community, and I felt like my career was unbalanced because I wasn't feeling like fulfilled. I wasn't excited. And then this opportunity came about. My member Zakaria Hill sent it to me, who's the executive director and co-founder of Supply Hive, and she's like, Julian, you need to look at this. I was like, all right, I'll look at it. Yeah. And then my mentor Phil Hall was like, Julian, I think you really need to look at this. And I was like, Unc, if you said that, I'll look at it.
That cosign was real.
Yeah. So I applied, and as I was going through the interviews, I was like, yes, this is where I need to be. This is my contribution at this moment in this stage of my life. This is the contribution I can begin to make. Because I was giving back to my community. I was able to be out in the community as a job. And not feel guilty of like missing work hours, being in the community.
Because that's what you are. That's what you already do. That's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And so I was like, I feel like God is leading me here because everything's going well with these interviews. I'm moving forward. I felt good, like the energy inside. Like my wife would tell you, like my energy coming home was a lot better than it was before. And I think all of that. It was like, this is where I'm supposed to be at. This is what I'm supposed to be contributing to my community. And so now it's really, from all the experiences I've had and what I've seen be done right, what I've seen be done wrong, things that we haven't even tried yet, and kind of taking all those lessons into one and seeing how I can maneuver. Because with League, it's very similar to, it has a similar purpose and mission to the Directors Council and the One Economy Initiative. And so my biggest goal was reaching out to Miss Terry Caldwell Johnson and being like, okay, one, your name is listed as one of the advisors for United League. I also know that you serve on the Directors Council's board of directors. What is this relationship supposed to be? What do you envision this relationship supposed to be? What is our role? Because there's no reason for me to disrupt anything that y'all are doing. How can we support? Because we're all working towards the same goal. Is there a piece of the work that y'all are doing that you are just like, we don't have the capacity to do, we're not interested in doing, we want to focus more on this component of it.
Right.
And so we began to have those conversations, and a lot of it kind of aligned with like programming events and like convening people. And I'm like, bet I could do that.
Right.
And then they're going to focus more on systems. And so that's an ongoing relationship that we're trying to develop and make sure that we can partner or at least coordinate with one another. That's a thing. That's a term that I've been taking on since 2020. It's like, how can we coordinate? Because
How can we coordinate?
I know like we also can't collaborate all the time, but like there's things that we have expertise in, our strengths in, either from our talents, our exposure, our experiences that we know that we can do well on, but we have an interest in this piece, but that's like one of our weaknesses. How can we assign that weakness to another organization that has that strength, and then coordinate with one another to make that overarching impact? And so that's kind of the approach that I've been taking with United League is like, what are some other organizations that are out here that are committed and invested in pushing the needle forward when it comes to economics in our community, and then identifying like what role do you want to play and then what is your strengths, so we can begin to put this like puzzle piece together, so we can make this overarching impact.
Right. So as you're going through that process, what were some of the things that you noticed before even getting really deep into the research or looking at the 1 hour report that you were like, hey, this is what's going on in the community, this needs to change? What would that be?
Say that quick question one more time.
Was there something that you were noticing in the community that needed to be improved?
I guess it was a few things. One was just how our conversations went when we were in spaces together. I remember listening to even younger leaders and also seasoned leaders about like, we're tired of having the same old conversation.
Right.
We've been having this conversation since the 60s, since the 70s. Like, we haven't moved anywhere. I'm tired of having the same old conversation. And so that was another insight of like, okay, we have to approach this differently. And then it was also peers struggling. Peers, jumping job to job, stressed out about paying rent, stressed out about being able to go to the doctor, the stigmas about going to a doctor, and then I would also say during my time with Des Moines BLM, it also provided more insight into folks that are truly struggling or like below the poverty line, and when it comes to like access to food, where they have to go to get access to food, transportation, jobs, the stigmas that they are faced with because of like their situation. And I think all of that was insightful knowledge of like, we have to look at this completely different because everyone faces something different, and your experience with certain things are going to be different than the other person next to you. And so it can't be a cookie cutter. It can't be something that we manufacture through a production line. Like, it's going to be customizable, case by case type thing. But I think those experiences are like, even when we went out and gave out supply bags to those that were in like camps around the city, that provided some new insight. When we tried to develop a community garden, when we were just speaking with different people and different challenges that they had,
Right.
I think that a lot of that inspired me a little bit further.
That's dope. I think people even in Des Moines think since Des Moines is a smaller city that we don't have big city problems.
Yeah.
And if you look at the food insecurity in Des Moines, it's great. Even I had a friend of mine tell me it wasn't we don't have food deserts, we have food apartheids, because a food desert is a natural. But here in Des Moines, there may be a space that could be perfect for a grocery store, but it's not zoned for a grocery store because of where it's at.
Yep.
So that person in that community has to go to Casey's or has to go to the food pantry, which the food pantry ain't that great either. 'Cause I see diabetics all the time that have to go to the food pantry, and all there are baked goods. You know what I mean? So those are problems that we're having in our community, but I don't think people realize it. It's because it's Des Moines. There's not, it's real out here for a lot of people in our community.
I would say too is I think Des Moines brings a lot of people to the city. Either you're coming back, this is your hometown, or you went to college here, and you found a career here, or you found a career opportunity that brought you to Des Moines. And something that I think is really important is to really learn the history of Des Moines so that things make sense. Um, Something I did when I came back to Des Moines was really deep dive into the history of Des Moines, from the early 1900s to the 1940s to the 1970s. And you talk about Center Street, you talk about the jazz presence here, the connection to Chicago, all these different things, and you begin to understand things a little bit, especially like the urban renewal project that built the highway, disrupted our black community, and what type of situation that put us in. Because in a way we lost ownership over how our community should be structured. The easeability of creating a business in your neighborhood. Like there's now I feel like a little bit more challenges of getting a physical location, either because property taxes are high, property in general is higher than what it used to be, but those businesses could have created generational opportunities for people's lineage to be able to build off of the business that they currently had, and all of that stuff got disrupted. And then also I think we don't learn all the pathways that we can go to advocate and also make influence in our community, because I'll be honest, I didn't learn about zoning until probably college or right after college. And I think there's probably a good amount of people in our community that still don't understand it, and how important it is to be a part of those conversations. So I think one is the learning curve, and this is stuff that doesn't get taught, and you can make your own decision if that's intentional or not, but there's a trend. Why aren't we being taught the different avenues of where these decisions are being made, and what is the culture of like city operation?
Right. Because yeah. I have a few opinions on that, but I'm not gonna get into that too much.
No, I feel you.
So, I was having a conversation with a public health friend of mine, and he said something to me that I felt like was super super dope, in that everybody is a part of health equity and public health, no matter where you work, what you do. And you attended the first My City, My Health conference last year. Tell me from your perspective, it being more of a public health equity kind of feel, what were your thoughts about it? Any takeaways? Anything that you learned from that experience?
I guess I didn't know what to expect, actually, when I first came. Honestly, I saw it pop up on my LinkedIn. I saw you posting about it. I saw other people posting about it. I was like, this is a place where I should be at. And so I went, and I learned a lot, honestly, from the mental health aspect of it, to access to healthcare, the conversation regarding like the not food desert but the food apartheid, and just being in a space of wisdom, experience, and insight being shared. Often, I think majority of that conference, I just sat there and listened and took notes. There was maybe a couple times I spoke, but most of the time I was just like, I just want to listen. And if there's anything that is missing that we need to discuss, I'll share it. And I think I mentioned like talking about how we were in a food desert, and how we only have this one grocery store here that's supposed to serve X amount of people, and then we have all these gas stations, and those gas stations are turning into fast food spots.
Yep.
They sell alcohol, but we don't have what our suburban neighbors have. Like my parents still live in Johnston. I see what is out in Johnston. We live in Aiken. We just bought a home in Des Moines. I see the difference. And so it's beginning to recognize those components and start asking the question, why don't we have more grocery stores in specific mileage of neighborhoods? Why don't we have more access to healthy or natural foods? Why don't we have more community gardens? Why don't we have more community fridges? And why? Honestly, just asking the question why.
Why? Right.
And then starting there and beginning to really understand, and then be like, okay, this is where we went wrong. Now, how do we fix it?
Yeah, facts. So this year on the panel, right, are there any conversations that you're excited about having with the other panelists and the moderator and the audience, what would you like to bring to the conference this year?
One is to learn, and second is just to give more insight to what our situation is, but also strategies that could help push us forward. So my interns are here. I know they're in the background.
Yeah,
but,
shout out.
Paul, who's been working with us all summer, he comes through the EKD YXL program. He's been doing research on Black economic mobility, and I started assigning him different reports. I think it was like the first or second day I just laid out like printed reports and was like, hey, I need you to read through these. Because to understand, like, this is the work that we are trying to resolve. These are some of the potential strategies that we can begin to propose and construct in our communities to help us advance. And some of the things that we learned is that X number of percentage of our community is eligible to purchase a home, but is too fearful because of the things that we've faced historically with banks, or they just don't have the knowledge of the different programs or resources to be able to get that home. Aspects of like jobs, like we just presented our impact report to our advisory board, and was it 57.1% of Black people in the workforce are eligible of facing some income shock or losing their job due to technology advancement. And it's because we are overpopulated in manufacturing, retail, food service, healthcare, where some of the departments that we're in, they will replace with technology because it's more affordable for the company, which will put our community in dire need. And so how do we get people into jobs that one, provide job security, but two, provide financial security for their generation, but the generations to come, and so that they can once again have a little bit more influence into how their community operates and how it's constructed.
Man, I would love to get your interns' input on that at some point in this episode, on this interview.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. They're like, oh, don't put me on light. Don't do it. No, but I think one, that's going to be a great conversation to have with that panel that we put together with you, with Lewis, Ken, Billy Weathers. I think that's going to be a very insightful conversation.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm biased because My City, My Health was founded by Larry Twitty and I, so I have a lot in it. But I feel like the space that we created allows for those conversations that happen open and honestly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm most excited about. I'm excited about you saying something and the crowd, because of the energy we have, not getting upset, but absorbing it and then asking a question and getting to a solution. Because what's the point of having the conference if we're just going to keep talking about the problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was one of the main reasons why we structured it the way we did. Okay, cool. What's one idea you could take away from this? Because we all know it sucks out here.
Yes.
We get it. Now what?
100%. 100%.
Now what? We know the problem, but now what? Man, Julian, so moving on, talking more about the community, where do you see the future of Des Moines? Like, you've been doing this role for a year and some change, or a few years now?
A year.
Is there, from your perspective, is there a light at the end of the Black community, tunnel? Like, what do you see in the future for us?
I believe there is. And as we get more involved, one thing I think is steps to it. As we learn from the past, we identify what worked, what didn't work, and what we didn't even attempt to try, and then use that to inform us on how to construct our strategy. I think we have great potential to really see great progress and success in our community. And once put our families in better positions, and our generations to come in better positions. Like, we talk about generational wealth all the time, but I think that comes not only from the dollar, but also from our physical health. I think we talked about the stigma of, Black male mental health. We talk about the stigma of going to the doctor because you don't have that doctor that looks like you and understands you.
Yeah.
And then I think what we've seen, even in these last couple of years, like with the Black Doula Collective, with more health professionals getting out into the community and educating people, and even working with other organizations to continue that message, we're gaining that knowledge, which will then inspire and excite people to get more involved from a systematic standpoint. So I think it starts with education, motivation, and determination, and then being able to put all the energy together to really come up with some type of plan and strategy where we can really change the trajectory of our community. But and really, so we just bought a house, so I'm kind of going through, like, you talk about like all the people that lived in your house and all this different stuff, and you have to clean the house, deep clean
Right.
it, all this different stuff, because you don't want that debris there. We haven't cleaned up the debris in our community from all the historical things that have happened to us. A lot of that stuff is still lingering. Like, you think about people that might smoke tobacco in
Right.
a car, and you go buy a car and it still got that tobacco smoke. You
Right.
gotta somehow clean out that debris, that smell, and it takes a lot of takes to clean out that smell, and it takes time. And so we have to really clean that out before we begin to implement plans, because if we implement plans too prematurely, that debris can interrupt that, because we haven't fixed that debris. So you talk about redlining, you talk about plans that cities have made 10 years ago that are still in progress, and we haven't resolved those. Even if we come up with something, that plan could possibly still disrupt whatever new plan we came up with. And so looking at it at a holistic standpoint, there's a lot of different avenues that we have to explore. And I think as we begin to learn and understand, we're understanding our perspective is expanding from all the different components that are connected to it. It's like a web.
Right. So, two-part question. One, do you believe understanding policy is a part of cleaning that debris? And two, what is an easy way for people to get into understanding policies that may be affecting their life and they have zero idea?
Yes, and my perspective is, yes, to understand policies is crucial. Reading policies is not the funnest thing in the world. It's not, but there's lessons in it. Second thing is working with your elected officials, especially ones that you trust, to kind of like break it down to you in layman's terms so that you better understand it will be crucial. And then folks that are invested in it. Once again, going back to the strengths piece, like, not everybody's gonna have the strength to read through that language, but we got black PhDs in our community. We have black lawyers in our community. We have black policymakers in our community that can really break that stuff down and have a passion for it, and also have a passion for our community that can begin to educate folks, or even working with other organizations that already kind of break down policies, laws, to make sure that's getting distributed to our community and people have access to it. Because a lot of people don't know where to go.
Right.
Honestly, like, looking for a lot of different documents. That even for the state of Iowa, if you try to look up like different bills that are pending or that have been signed, it's kind of hard if you don't know the bill's code and you only know it by like the news term.
Right.
And so there's different methods and strategies that you have to like learn to be able to get the information that you're seeking. It's similar to like research. Like, there's different methodologies, there's different theories and all these different things that we have to learn. But unfortunately, with some of our systems that house all this content, it's just hard to find.
That's crazy. But like you said, there are people that know how to find it and know
Absolutely.
how to digest it and give it to you in a way that we can understand. So it's just instead of finding that policy, it's finding those people.
Absolutely, and getting them involved.
Yeah.
And also getting folks involved that you might not ordinarily see. Because there's a lot of people out here that get people oversee, and they don't get the opportunity to share because they have a lot of knowledge. Like, how many universities we have just in our proximity of Des Moines? Like, there's a lot of people that we can reach.
Yeah.
Or even just include in that type of conversation.
No,
The
that's
majority
real.
of them have poli-sci, liberal arts, or something related to public policy.
Right.
Professors that are either actively constantly doing research on it, doing presentations, publishing articles in research journals, that would be more than happy to come and speak about the stuff that they found and the knowledge they have.
That's good to know, because I would love to have him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, yo. Didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, Julian, thank you so much for being here today, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for being here, even though y'all don't want to get on the mic. That's cool. He's like, do you want to get on? Tell me what you want to get on.
You in the fresh suit, bro.
You in the fresh suit, bruh. He's like,
you came clean for a reason, right?
it's all good, bro. I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but again,
but Paul's a future CPA, so make sure you reach out to him in a couple of years.
Up.
You got Seneca, who's a local filmmaker here in the community, so make sure y'all check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Julian, for anybody that's listening that wants to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the biggest place to find me at, or I'll be more than happy to connect with you via email or phone and get coffee or something and have a conversation. But you'll probably see me around in different community events, so don't hesitate to come up to me. I'm a friendly guy, so.
Okay, all right. And I'll make sure I link the LinkedIn and the website as well in the description of this podcast and on YouTube. But again, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for watching the Healthy Project podcast. I'll holler at you next time.